Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMZ for a new episode. Hopefully, you enjoyed the episode from the last weekend um, and also the bonus episode we posted a few days back, which focused on the Asad Takhallus of Ghalib. Now, if you're a new viewer, welcome to the podcast, and we are very happy to have you here. One recommendation would be, sorry, that if you have time, do go through the introduction episode because that will help you get insights into the whole motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. Um, just for your information, we post weekend episodes where we pick a ghazal from Diwan-e-Ghalib and get into the personal impressions of the same. In addition, we plan some bonus episodes which are not part of this playlist, um, where we would cover additional topics above and beyond ghazals from Diwan-e-Ghalib, but still focused on Urdu poetry, primarily on Mirza Ghalib and his works. For my returning viewers, welcome back. Very happy to have you here. And to all of you, if you like the content, do click the like button. If you want to be informed whenever I post new content, request you to subscribe to the podcast. That would be much appreciated. Only if you want to. And if you have friends who would enjoy listening to this content, do share it. It just helps the channel reach out to like-minded fans, right? Who then get an opportunity to enjoy the podcast. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into the sixth ghazal from Diwan-e-Ghalib. As always, I will read the whole ghazal once and then we can get into the impressions verse by verse. So, this is how the ghazal goes. मतला अर्ज किया है शौक हर रंग रकीब-ए-सर-ओ-सामान निकला कैस तस्वीर के पर्दे में भी uryan निकला जख्म ने दाद ना दी tangi-e-dil की या रब तीर भी sina-e-bismil से par-afshaan निकला bu-e-gul nala-e-dil dud-e-charagh-e-mahfil जो तेरी bazm से निकला सो परेशान निकला dil-e-hasrat-zada था maida-e-lazzat-e-dard काम यारों का ba-qadr-e-lab-o-dandaan निकला थी नौ-amuz-e-fana himmat-e-dushwar-pasand सख्त मुश्किल है कि ये काम भी आसान निकला मक्ता अर्ज किया है दिल में फिर गिरिए ने एक शोर उठाया गालिब आ जो कतरा ना निकला था सो तूफान निकला So this is a very nice ghazal. Took me a while to reach a state where I could say, okay, I understand the background theme. And per my understanding, the background theme is anxiety. Anxiety, restlessness. Anxiety and restlessness that is beyond control. You cannot control it, or you cannot hide it, or you cannot subdue it any further. And how that manifests. And Ghalib has, of course, handpicked just uh, just amazing scenarios that not only quantify the whole phenomena of how when you cannot control it anymore, how your anxiety or your pain or your restlessness would manifest, right? So with that background theme, um, let's get into the impressions verse by verse. So the first शेर, शौक हर रंग रकीब-ए-सर-o-सामान निकला, कैस तस्वीर के पर्दे में भी औरियां निकला. Now, there is a background story of Qais, whose, whose other name, by which he is probably more popular, is Majnu, the famous Majnu of the Laila Majnu couple, right? Um, Now, I will not get into the whole story of Lala Majnu because I have covered it in previous episodes. Ghalib does refer to Majnu many times in many ghazals. But very briefly put, this was a couple who fell in love and could not come together due to various reasons, which ultimately landed Majnu in a state of almost madness, crazy madness, wherein his love for Laila kept growing, and again there were signs and confirmations that he would not get Laila in this lifetime, pushing him over the edge. And finally, he reached a state where he was completely crazy about Laila, was declared a madman. But the fact of the matter was that he was so engrossed in the thoughts of Laila and the pain of not having her that he just could not function normally. He left the society, he left the town, he left friends, family, everyone behind, and ultimately landed up spending the rest of his life in a desert by himself, where he was, uh, as the tale goes, either writing poems about Laila, missing Laila, just just became part of that desert and its habitat till his last days. So, with that background, Majnu is frequently and famously pictured as this madman in the desert, right? And this is a very typical picture which shows him devoid of devoid of all material possessions or signs, if you may, right? Signs which would allude to the fact that he's a normal person, part of the society, well fed, well clothed, well taken care of. No, no, no. Majnu's symbolism is an antithesis to this, right? So basically, Majnu is portrayed as someone who was devoid of all material comforts. So, torn clothes, disheveled hair, parched lips, burnt skin, um, clothes that were almost falling apart, revealing his nakedness, no shoes, fragile, almost a starved, bony skeleton of a madman of a lover, right? In the desert. So that is the typical picturization of Majnu. He is an embodiment of what happens to you when all you stand for is love and the associated longing, grief, pain, and loss. He was an embodiment of a person who had left, other than this thing, everything behind. Everything. So, keeping that context in mind, let's get into this verse. Shauq har rang, raqeeb-e-sar-o-saamaan nikla. And this first line just made me smile because it is that age old war, right? The first line is indicating or capturing that age old war. And what is that war between, right? So, shock, which by extension is your want and desire of love, true love, right? And sarosama, which by extension is material possessions, material stability, earthly possessions, earthly stability, earthly things, right? So, this age old war between love and earthly possessions. Ghalib has just Ghalib has just captured it in the first line and established or re-established the fact that these two things do not coexist. So he's saying love in all its forms, shades, hues, colors will always be an enemy to earthly possessions, material possessions in all their hues, forms, and colors. And that's a beautiful thought. That's an established fact. Ghalib is not the only one who speaks to it, right? And we will get into some other examples. But Ghalib in the first line is very clearly saying that love, whenever love enters the room, the desire for earthly possessions, material possessions, exits. They both cannot coexist. They both cannot coexist. In every scenario, in every shape and form, these two cannot be in the same room. You can either be in love, and we are talking about true love here. You can either be in love or you can be in love with material possessions, earthly possessions, fond of all these creature comforts. You cannot do both because one demands giving up the other. One demands giving up the other. Lucky are those who can probably walk this fine line, but usually you will have to choose. You will have to choose and prioritize one of them because both of them require probably 100% investment from you in terms of attention and effort. And you might think you can juggle them, but very soon comes a point where choices have to be made and you have to choose one. So now, Shauq har rang, love in all its shades. And I was wondering, what does he mean by love in all its shades, right? Why not just say love, right? Love is the enemy to material possessions, right? Why all its shades? And I think what Ghalib was trying to emphasize is that do not think that it is just this romantic love, right? Probably what he meant to say was having affection and love for anything will require you to prioritize it over your drive or your desires for materialistic things or other earthly things, right? And Cambridge English Dictionary it describes worldly things as things relating to or consisting of physical things and ordinary life rather than spiritual things. So, on one side, we want to define what love is, but on the other hand, we should also define what is considered earthly and material things. So from this definition, it seems that all the physical and ordinary things, right, which are not spiritual, and love, of course, is a spiritual phenomena, but yeah, this definition helps. And what are those worldly things? Some examples are material possessions, money, awards, recognition, physical appearance. Very interesting examples. Probably none of them come as a surprise, but still, the surprising element is how close to heart these things are, right? How close to heart these things are for us. Awards, recognition. I mean, seriously, do we have to give that up? because because one works hard for those. One works hard for those, not only in the typical career sense, but in anything we do, right? And then suddenly we are supposed to prioritize something else over these. So, those are some examples of material possessions. Let's get into the love. So, what are the examples of types of love? Because here Ghalib says, Shauq har rang, love in all its hues and colors, right? So, I did some research and I found these 7 types of love in Greek literature. So, seven, no, eight different types of love according to ancient Greeks. So the first one is eros, sexual passion. Second one is philia, deep friendship. Third is ludus, playful love. Fourth is agape, love for everyone. Fifth is pragma, which is long standing love. And then there is philotia, love of the self. Storge, family love. And lastly, mania, which is obsessive love. And it is said of all these 8 types, agape is the love which is considered to be of the highest order. This is the love you feel when you are most evolved spiritually and emotionally, because this is love for everyone, where you think that everybody is part of a single being and everybody deserves same kind of love, same kind of care, same kind of tenderness. There's another Sternberg's triangle theory of love, which says that love is of 3 types: intimacy, passion, and commitment. So, just just interesting how Ghalib in this first verse, without going into all these details, does emphasize that any and every kind of love will always challenge any and every kind of material and earthly possessions, or by extension, love for uh, any type of material and earthly possessions. They cannot coexist. They will always be in conflict with each other if you force them to coexist. And in the second line, of course, he gives a beautiful example, which takes one a lot to understand. At least it took me a lot of time. So he says, कैस तस्वीर के पर्दे में भी औरियां निकला. Now here, the straightforward translation would be that Majnu, in all his pictures, right, whether the ones that were drawn when he was alive or the ones that were drawn posthumously. In most of his pictures, he appears naked. And it is true. It is true. Most of the symbolic picturization of Majnu, like I said in the beginning, is of this crazy lover roaming in the deserts, underfed, emaciated, disheveled hair, torn clothes, no shoes, just a picture of loss, a picture of loss from any and every earthly uh, perspective. Just a picture of loss, right? So Ghalib is saying that you can clearly see in Majnu's pictures how he appears totally devoid of any earthly or materialistic possessions, comforts, etc. Now, that is the straightforward translation. But the more you think about it, and this is Ghalib, right? Everything is very intentional. Every word is very intentional. Every example is very intentional. There are no flukes. So if you are guessing something or if it is bringing to mind something, that's what the intent was. So this is what it brought to my mind. So yes, Ghalib is giving Majnu's nakedness as a as an example of loss of any earthly or material possessions. But is that all there is to it? I don't think so. I think there's more to it. So the nakedness on one hand, Majnu's nakedness on one hand is presenting the loss of earthly and material things, but in the same vein, on the other hand, it is representing this transparency, nakedness, purity of his soul, right? So, nakedness, if you look at it from material and earthly perspective, seems to be like a loss. But if you look at it spiritually, it is probably the best thing ever, because nakedness of the soul is a compliment, it's an achievement. It is what will make you one with God finally. If you have a naked, transparent soul that is full of love and nothing else, a soul that is so full of love that no amount of material filters, if you may, can hide that. So uryan, which means nakedness in this couplet, should not only be taken as a loss of material possessions. I genuinely believe that Ghalib also captures the fact that this nakedness, though from a earthly perspective might seem like a loss, from a soul perspective, spiritually, is Majnu's identity. That he had a soul that was so full of love and so out there, transparent, visible to everybody, that nothing could hide it. Even the best of the painters, even the best of the artists, when they sat down to capture him in a picture, left the soul alone. They left the soul alone. They might have captured the fact that yes, he doesn't have food, he doesn't have clothes, he doesn't have shoes, he hasn't showered for like whatever. But they could not hide. They could not hide or camouflage or color over the true soul filled with love. And hence, in every picture, Majnu is portrayed as somebody with no material possessions other than love. no material possessions other than the spiritual possession, love for Laila. So I think, I think Ghalib has very beautifully, on one hand, as always, right? On one hand, um, established the fact that love and love for material possessions cannot coexist, and on the other hand, has said or symbolized nakedness both from a material perspective where you would consider it a loss, and then from a spiritual perspective where you would consider it probably the biggest gain, the biggest achievement, right? Where your soul is nothing but true love, and it shines through all the frames, all the colors, all the veils, all the filters, whatever you put on it. The soul shines through it. There is no hiding that. Nobody can hide that. Nobody can hide that. Um, and worth mentioning, like I said in the beginning, Ghalib has captured that long talked about, long written about war here between love and material possessions, right? He's not the only one. Now, I was I will quote some examples in the Bible, right, which capture the same thing. So Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So, of course, the verse initially talks about do not store your treasures on this earth, in this earthly world, right? Store your treasures in the spiritual world, because wherever you store your treasures, there your heart will be. If you want your heart to stay here in this earthly world, around with your houses and cars and stocks and shares, all good stuff, I agree. But or, or you want your heart to follow you once you transcend to the spiritual world, choice is yours. Invest where you want your heart to be, because that's where your heart will be. And then in Matthew 19:23 to 26, again, Bible captures the fact that it is easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. So one wonders, right? I mean, that difficult? That difficult for a rich man who is who has all one can wish for in terms of luxury and assets and possessions. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for this man to enter heaven. So, by extension, it almost seems that gathering riches, prioritizing riches and material possessions inevitably puts you in a state or in a position where you have to let go of your spiritual self, spiritual love, any kind of love. These riches just put a block on you giving any time, bandwidth, or effort to these things which are probably more important for the overall well being of your soul. I also came across some quotes which were very interesting and in sync to what we are discussing here. One of them says, you're not wealthy enough until you have something money cannot buy. And I found that very interesting. That's a very unique way of defining wealth, having something money cannot buy. There was another one. Choosing money over love will always make you poor. So, like I said, that choice comes up very quickly. If you try to coexist, have these two things coexist in your life, the choice comes up very quickly, where you have to choose between love and money. And if you choose money, in the long run, you will probably land up being poor despite all the money. And the last one, and this one is by W.C. Fields: a rich man is nothing but a poor man with money and no love. So just great thoughts which kind of work into this first couplet by Ghalib. And of course we spent so much time on it, and we did that because it is a thought, it is a concept worth pondering on, worth understanding, worth realizing, right? That they cannot coexist. As soon as one enters, the other one has to exit. Love enters, prioritization of earthly material possessions have to exit. Earthly material possessions enter, love has to exit. They cannot coexist. Moving on to the next share. This one is zakhm ne daad na di tangi-e-dil ki yarab. तीरा भी ओ आई एम सो सॉरी तीर भी sina-e-bismil से par-afshaan nikla. I'll read that again because I messed it up. जख्म ने दाद ना दी तंगी-ए-दिल की अरब, तीर भी सीना-ए-बिस्मिल से पर-afshaan निकला. So the first line, zakhm ne daad na di tangi-e-dil ki arab. Like I said in the beginning, the whole ghazal is around anxiety. It is around this restlessness, this grief, this pain, continuous perpetual state of anxiousness, restlessness, pain, grief, right? And in the first line, Ghalib captures it very well. So, tangi-e-dil, narrowness of the heart. Now, usually metaphorically, if one would say you have a narrow heart, it would probably be understood as, you're not generous, right? Your heart is not generous with love and other things, other emotions it houses. But here, Ghalib is actually talking about the physical aspect of it. So he's saying, my heart has become narrow, and by extension, smaller in a way. And one wonders, how would that happen? So, tangi-e-dil is actually emphasizing on the fact that by this continuous clenching of my heart, this continuous pressure on my heart, this continuous grip on my heart of pain, grief, sorrow, anxiety, the heart has now perpetually become narrowed down. It has become condensed because of this grasp all these negative emotions have had on it for such a long time. They've just squeezed the heart into something very dense and narrow, right? Usually we know heart is a very it's a very nice pink spongy soft thing. Right, that's the typical picture of a heart. It's not supposed to be condensed and dense and narrow and solid and hard, right? That's not what it is supposed to be physically. It is supposed to be the opposite. But Ghalib is saying that both physically and metaphorically, the heart has been dealt so many blows and has been kept in this perpetual grasp of pain and misery and anxiety that it has lost its spongy quality. It has become dense and hard and narrow, right? And he says that zakhm ne daad na di tangi-e-dil ki arab. So the wound that was created on my heart, or the wound that was inflicted on my heart, probably will be a better way to say it. The wound that was inflicted on my heart almost, almost did not, almost overlooked or ignored the density of this heart, the narrowness of this heart, right? And in the second line, he says, "Tir bhi sina-e-bismil se par-afshaan nikla." The arrow that was struck on my heart, even that arrow could not ignore the tightness of this heart, the denseness, the narrowness of this heart. And when that arrow exited the heart, the fletching on the back was destroyed. It just scattered. Now, when I was reading the second line, I was like, okay, we need to understand the arrow a little here, because I'm not understanding what's the big deal of this arrow coming out of the heart, par-afshaan, right, with feathers scattered all over. So I went into it a little, and this is what I got. So the arrow has four parts: the shaft, that is the long body; the arrow point, which is the head of the arrow, which will get inserted into the target; the fletching. Now, the fletching is this fin shaped aerodynamic stabilization device that is attached to an arrow. It can be made of feather, it can be made of bark. And each piece of this fletching is called a flight or a feather. So the technicality which Ghalib captures in his ghazals always amaze me, and that's why I go and research it, because I know, Ghalib is stating it correctly. I better know my, I better know my basics. So yes, and the objective of this fletching, which is at the back of the arrow, and the fourth part of the arrow is the knock. That is what goes and rests on your thread. So, the objective of the fletching is to stabilize the arrow while it is in flight. This is what keeps the arrow stable, and it is supposed to boost the arrow's overall speed, accuracy, and impact power. It is said that fletching is what allows the arrow to fly true. And if you do not have fletching, it would fly unpredictably. Now, Ghalib here is saying that an arrow which is actually designed with the purpose of flying straight, like they say, right? Aerodynamically stabilized, fly straight. An arrow with the fletching on it, and the fletching was supposed to keep it straight, it was supposed to boost its power, its accuracy, and finally its impact, right? Such a thing, such a thing which was designed to be on course, stay on course, and not go here and there, right? Even such a thing, when it passes through my heart, or when it passed through my heart, the narrowness, the denseness, the solid nature of the heart impacted even that thing, which was actually created to be able to circumvent anything it was going through or passing through. So even the arrow, when it passed through my out and through my heart and came out on the other end, had all its fletching scattered and dropping off. And and one has to give him credit for this picturization, for this visualization. An arrow is not supposed to get deterred by anything, least of all a heart, which is supposed to be such a, like I said, spongy, soft thing, right? Arrow is not supposed to get deterred by it. Arrow is supposed to go straight through it. Arrow should not have a problem at all. It should come out intact. But it is Ghalib's heart, and Ghalib is just trying to quantify and visualize for us the the transformation the heart has gone through because of pain and grief, how hardened this heart has become, how hardened physically this heart has become because of being in this perpetual state of angst and grief. That when an arrow passed through it, even the arrow came out almost disheveled, if you may, on the other end, with its fletching just flying off, all those feathers and fins just flying off. Even the arrow could not pierce it comfortably. Keeping in mind the arrow is supposed to do that and can pretty much pierce anything, right? So yeah, the visualization is amazing. And दूसरी एक बात, and of course this is not directly related to the शेर, but दिमाग में आई है तो शेयर कर रहे हैं कि गालिब का वो जो शेर है, कोई मेरे दिल से पूछे तेरे तीर नी में कश को, यह खलिश कहाँ से होती जो जिगर के पार होता. वो शेर इतनी बार मेरे दिमाग में आया when I was collating my impressions for this ghazal. बिल्कुल ऐसा लग रहा था कि अगर तो तीर पार हो गया जैसा कि इस शेर में हुआ है, तो तीर डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा, और अगर कहीं तीर अटक गया एंड इट हिट्स इट्स मार्क, तो फिर दिल डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा. वो जो खलिश है वो करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी एरो को मिल जाएगी, क्योंकि वो अटक जाएगा. इट विल फाइंड इट्स मार्क, एंड get embedded in the heart and then destroy the heart. But if the arrow goes through and through, then probably the arrow will come out destroyed. Just a thought. Okay, moving on to the next शेर. bu-e-gul, nala-e-dil, dud-e-charagh-e-mahfil, जो तेरी bazm से निकला सो परेशान निकला. Now, three things. bu-e-gul, the scent of a flower, fragrance of a flower. nala-e-dil, sigh from a heart. dud-e-charagh, smoke from a burning lamp. And actually स्मोक तो हम लोगों को पता है कि उसका वर्ड धुआं है, राइट? सो यहाँ पे धुआं क्यों नहीं कहा है, दूध क्यों कहा है, was something I was wondering about, only to realize that दूध is specifically used for the smoke that comes out from a lamp that has been extinguished. It is not the smoke that comes out from a lamp that is lit. So when a lamp is extinguished, there is a different quality to that few last swirls of smoke vis-a-vis a lamp that is lit with a flame on it, right, or burning on it. So keep that in mind, that doodh is not just your regular smoke that comes from a lit lamp. Doodh is actually those last few very distinct swirls of smoke that you would see emanating from a wick that has no flame on it anymore, which is very typical. So that's what he has used here. जो तेरी bazm से निकला. So bazm here is a gathering. I will not say party because that sounds frivolous when you're talking about Ghalib, but gathering, um, group of people, a congregation, just a collection of people, right? So he's saying whoever comes out from your gathering or from your group after spending time with you comes out pareshan, comes out anxious. And anxious like these three things which he has quoted in the first line. And that is where you have to, again, the picturization is just mind blowing. So, anxiety, Ghalib is symbolizing anxiety through these three things. Now, bu-e-gul, the fragrance of a flower, right? And इससे एक शेर याद आया, एंड ये शेर बिल्कुल कैप्चर करता है इस बात को. सो शेर इज़ बाय शहजाद अहमद एंड इट गोज़, आज तक उसकी मोहब्बत का नशा तारी है, फूल बाकी नहीं, खुशबू का सफ़र जारी है. सो आज तक उसकी मोहब्बत का नशा तारी है, फूल बाकी नहीं, खुशबू का सफ़र जारी है. सो द फ्लावर माइट विदर अवे, but the fragrance it has emanated or the fragrance it has released will linger on much, much longer than the span of the flower's existence itself. So, this emanating of something that outlives the object that emanated it is the theme that is being captured here. So, moving on to the second one, nala-e-dil, the sighs from the heart, the pleas from the heart, almost the prayers from the heart, will stay much, much longer in the environment, even after the heart is gone or destroyed, right? And then the third one is dud-e-charagh. So again, that smoke from a lamp that has extinguished. It is not lit anymore. Those swirls of smoke are still getting emanated even after the lamp has extinguished. It's not lit anymore. So Ghalib is just trying to capture that much after the event, the impact lingers on. After the event ends, the impact lingers on. And in the second line, he says, so we come to you, anybody. So these are like inanimate things, right? These are not people. Flowers in your gathering, candles lit in your gathering, people in your gathering who have come with this with this heart full of anxiety and full of longing for you, right? All of these people and things, when they get up and leave, they leave in a very anxious state. They leave very perplexed. They leave with a longing. And what is the longing about? Probably coming back to you. It is hard to be around you, metaphorically or physically, and then leave. It is hard to be part of this occurrence where we are with you and have it end. It is very hard. And when it ends or when we leave, we take with us this continuous perplexing anxiety and longing till we come back. So he's just trying to capture the impact the beloved has on everything around her. Not only the people around her, but also things around her. Everything is The flowers are very happy, they are blooming, their fragrance is emitting as it is supposed to be, the hearts are joyful, the candles are burning. But as soon as these things have to end, because the gathering is ending, there is this perplexing anxiety that everyone carries with them. So getting away from the beloved for both people and things is not an easy task. Nobody comes away from her, nobody parts from her in a good state of mind. Everybody who parts from her is parting with an anxiety, a longing to come back, to come back. Moving on to the next share. dil-e-hasrat-zada था, maida-e-lazzat-e-dard, kaam yaron का ba-qadr-e-lab-o-dandaan nikla. So, dil-e-hasrat-zada था. So, I think this is a great part of the first line where Ghalib is identifying his heart in a very interesting way. So he's saying this heart had a million wishes, and this heart is identified by the death of those million wishes. So initially the heart housed a million wishes. Today the heart houses the death of those million wishes. And you can only imagine. You can only imagine the grief and the pain the heart is harboring right now. To wish for a million things and then have those million things get struck off the list one by one because they're never going to happen, that's a painful experience. Not to mention long. So over a long duration, one by one, each wish has died its own death. And today the heart houses the death of those million wishes. And because of that, this heart has transformed almost into a banquet. Uh, Maida is actually literally translated means tablecloth, but dastarkhan. But by extension, it means banquet, a spread of dishes and delicacies of pain. So Ghalib is saying this heart of mine, which now houses the death of a million wishes, is a banquet of any and every type of delicacies and dishes you can imagine of pain. And that was Ghalib's style. he could have he could have very easily chose to say this heart is a graveyard. This heart is a graveyard of tombstones of wishes. But that's not Ghalib, because his usual instinct was not to belittle or mourn pain. He rejoiced in his pain. He had a different take on pain. Not that it did not hurt him, but he chose to rejoice in it, exalt in it. So yeah, he could have easily said this was a graveyard of wishes, but he chooses to say this is a banquet of delicacies and dishes of pain, any and every type of pain you can ever imagine, I can serve it. My heart houses it, right? And in the second line, he says, Kaam yaron ka ba-qadr-e-lab-o-dandaan nikla. Um, so this is where the sarcasm comes in, right? This is where the sarcasm comes in. So he says that, Yar, my friends, my well wishers, I invited them to this banquet. By extension, I invited them thinking they will help or indulge me in my pain. Allow me to share my pain with them. Allow me to serve my pain to them, right? Wherein I can probably, get some respite and relief by sharing it with them. But what has happened is, in the second line, he says that these people came to this banquet, right? These people came to this banquet only to very superficially indulge in my pain. And the superficiality of it, he has captured it so beautifully in these lines where he says labo-dandaan. By translation, it means lip and teeth. So Ghalib is saying these people came and I served them all these delicacies of pain, and they picked it, and the food and the drink that I served, metaphorically, did not even pass their lips and teeth. So, see the technicality. We know that to enjoy food, when we eat food, lip and teeth is not where the food is supposed to be. Sure, it touches your lips, it touches your teeth, but ultimate enjoyment and eating happens tongue onwards, right? You taste it on the tongue, you chew it with your back teeth, and then you swallow it. You ingest it. That is the act of eating. Not much of eating happens between the lip and the teeth. If you're keeping things between the lip and the teeth, that means you're just touching your food, just tasting it, but you're not indulging in it. You're not ingesting it. And Ghalib says that these people came. And now let's get away from the banquet scenario. Let's get into the metaphorical realm of this, right? So Ghalib is saying that these people come to me, and under the pretext of, hey, we are here to share your pain, listen to your pain, listen to your stories, understand your pain, give you some relief and respite. But what they actually do is they skim. They skim over it. They nibble a little, they sip a little on it, and out they go. Now, you can take it two ways. One, these people do not want. These people do not want to sit with Ghalib and actually journey with him through his pain. Feel it with him. Take it in. Partake in it. And the second, and this is the one I am going with, is that Ghalib is almost saying that you people do not do it because you cannot do it. You cannot do it. Ghalib is saying, and I would bet my last dollar on this, that these people actually lack the gravitas. They actually lack the ability to do this, to understand his pain. Ghalib is saying, you lack the IQ to understand my pain, and you lack the EQ to empathize with it. And that is why you come to this so-called banquet where I'm serving the dishes of pain from my heart, and just sip a little, nibble a little, and walk out. It's your inability that it's your inability to actually enjoy these dishes that you don't enjoy them. It requires a different kind of soul. It requires a different kind of person. you are not it. I mean, you are not that person. You lack that soul. You lack the IQ, you lack the EQ. You cannot understand it, you cannot empathize with it. I would say that's what is that's what is the actual fact vis-a-vis these people just not wanting to indulge in it. And another interesting thought that comes to mind is, sure, right now Ghalib is talking about his pain, but this is almost sounding as if he's talking about his pain and the way he projects and portrays his pain in his poetry. Right? This is one of the most perplexing things about Ghalib. Not everybody can understand Ghalib's poetry. People struggle. The so-called honorary literary geniuses struggle. Some say it is this, some say it is that. So even that undercurrent is coming into play here. To understand Ghalib's poetry, you either need to have a very high IQ or you need to have a very high EQ, but actually you need to have both. But at least you should have one. And Ghalib is almost saying that I will share with you. I will tell you my pains and I will vocalize them for you. The problem is that you, at your end, just lack the understanding and empathy to actually hear what I'm saying. Moving on to the next one. Thi nau-amuz-e-fana, himmat-e-dushwar-pasand. Sakht mushkil hai ki ye kaam bhi aasaan nikla. So again, this is it is a complex share, for me at least. Now, in essence, Ghalib is addressing his courage. So in the first line, Thi nau-amuz-e-fana, himmat-e-dushwar-pasand. So the courage is in the middle, and Ghalib is talking about two unique qualities of his courage. Right? One unique quality of his courage is that his courage is kind of a learner or beginner as far as destruction goes, as far as knowing what an end is like goes, as far as knowing what extinction looks like. So he's saying, on one hand, my courage is it has a little blind spot, if you may, in terms of recognizing the end, the ultimate end. Fana is the ultimate end. So he's saying my courage on one hand has a blind spot where it cannot very quickly recognize the upcoming end or destruction. On the other hand, my courage has this taste, affinity, drive for difficulties. So it almost seems like Ghalib is saying it's a double whammy for my courage, right? Number one, it loves to get into situations which are dangerous and risky because of the love it has for difficulties. And secondly, it has this blind spot where it cannot recognize very quickly when the risk it was loving so much has transformed into something fatal. So the courage in me will make me run towards something dangerous, and the blind spot this courage has will prevent it from realizing when this danger turned from being dangerous to being fatal. And and Ghalib is almost trying to say that this is what makes everything very easy. This is what makes everything very easy for me. These so-called Herculean, difficult tasks people talk about in love are very easy for me because my courage is having these two unique qualities. So I don't, there is nothing to, there is nothing that makes me hesitate. There is nothing that makes me fearful, because I have a blind spot in terms of recognizing danger becoming fatal. And I have this never ending drive. My courage has this never ending drive of going into places that are difficult, so called difficult, impossible tasks. That's what my courage goes after. So when these both, when you combine, when I combine both of these, I get this strength, never ending strength and desire to run into the most disastrous, most dangerous situations unruffled at all. I mean, unruffled at all. Uh, and that is very unique. And in the second line, so of course the verse is all about difficult situations, right? And just see how he plays on this in the second line. So in the second line he says, "Sakht mushkil hai ki ye kaam bhi aasaan nikla." So mushkil, aasaan. Mushkil, difficult, aasaan, easy. So he's saying the fact, the fact that me going into dangerous situations which lead to destruction is so easy is my difficulty. That's the difficult part. That is my difficulty. That charging towards destruction is so easy for me. Because charging towards this ultimate destruction is so easy for me, my difficulty is in figuring out what will actually be difficult for me. What level of difficulty will I have to give to this courage of mine to cater to its desire for difficulty? Because here it has already gone through extinction and come out. So the usual extinction and destruction and end is not working. My courage is not finding it difficult at all. So now my difficulty is, what should I conjure, right? What should I put together for this courage to find it difficult? Moving on to the last शेर, मक्ता. दिल में फिर गिरिये ने एक शोर उठाया गालिब, आह जो कतरा ना निकला था सो तूफान निकला. Makta hai, it is jam packed and it is beautiful, right? So दिल में फिर गिरिये ने एक शोर उठाया गालिब. So Ghalib is saying that today, once again, my heart is weeping and crying. And today, this weeping and crying is creating a noise so loud that it can be heard everywhere, right? So today, once again, my heart has reached a point where it is no longer crying and weeping silently. It has once again reached a point where its cry and weeping is creating a noise that can be heard by everyone. So by extension, today again I have hit my endurance limit where I cannot contain it anymore inside me. I cannot hide it anymore inside me. The anxiety, the grief, the pain is spilling out, and spilling out in volumes unimaginable, in quantities unimaginable. So every day, the regular exercises, I hurt, I grieve, It pains, and I keep it in my heart. I bury it in my heart. That is my usual exercise. But then there are days when this thing hits its endurance limit. And today is one such day. And in the second line he says, आह जो कतरा ना निकला था सो तूफान निकला. Ah is the sigh from your heart, the painful, pain, uh, pain-ridden sigh from your heart, right? So Ghalib is saying that on those normal days, the sigh that would not even bring out a single tear to the eye for others to see, right? Today is coming out as a whole full-fledged storm. Sailab, flood, storm, hurricane. So on a normal day, this pain and grief would not even push a single tear out of my eye. But then today is not one of those normal days. Today is the day when this is going to create a flood. This is going to create a flood instead of just a teardrop. So again, I have hit my limit one more time. So yeah, you keep holding it, you keep holding it back, and then comes a time when you can't hold it back anymore. ये दूसरी लाइन पे एक शेर बहुत ही सिमिलर और इन द सेम वेन, राइट, बाय करामल बुखारी. मिज़गा पे रुके हैं अभी ढलके नहीं आंसू. मिज़गा पे रुके हैं अभी ढलके नहीं आंसू. ये सोच का सैलाब सफ़र तक नहीं पहुंचा. So basically, all these tears that remain unushed, tears that never actually manifest physically, right? These are all tears which are almost like passengers waiting. Passengers waiting for a flood like this to come, which will take them finally to their destination. And of course, their destination is to roll down the cheek, right? Come out and roll down the cheek. There's an other शेर by मुनव्वर राने. हजारों बस्तियां आ जाएंगी तूफान की जद में. मेरी आंखों में अब आंसू नहीं, सैलाब रहते हैं. So again, the same thought that many villages and towns probably will get flooded, because nowadays it's not tears that reside in my eyes. These are floods that reside in my eyes. So वही फीलिंग है, वही जज्बा है कि जब तक रोक सकते हैं रोकेंगे बूंद बूंद करके, बट फिर एक दिन जब निकलेंगे तो ये सारी बूंदें एक सागर बन के निकलेंगी. एक और चीज़ जो काबिल गौर है इस शेर में, गालिब has used a teardrop and a flood, right? And I think though the straightforward meaning is all the teardrops were held back and there came a time when all these teardrops became one to create a flood. But I think the teardrop also is synonymous with, Ghalib is trying to quantify two things. On one hand, he's quantifying his self-control when he quotes the teardrop. A teardrop unushed, right? A teardrop unushed. A teardrop that never rolled down the cheek, right? A teardrop that was held back. So when he uses that teardrop, he is actually quantifying the self-control. So it's not as if this pain usually on a normal day is less and hence only one teardrop, and then today the pain was more and hence the flood. No, the pain is the same. The pain is the same every day. But it is the self control that allows or equips Ghalib to not even shed a tear on a normal day. So the teardrop just exemplifies the strength and the self control Ghalib shows every normal day, where he contains this pain inside and doesn't let it physically manifest. And then, of course, the flood on the other side is to quantify again the pain that he has held back, and now without self control, it is out there for everybody to see. Everybody can see it. So both examples have their own importance. Both examples have their own importance. So it says, you must have heard the quote that misery loves company, right? So it almost seems that this lone tear has managed to muster many more, right? एक शेर है, ये कह दिया है मेरे आंसू ने तंग आकर, हमें बेवक्त ज़रूरत निकालिए साहिब. So basically, the sher is almost saying that थक गए हैं. The teardrops are tired. They are tired of being held back. And they are almost pleading that please don't wait for an occasion, just let us out. We are tired of being held back. Something that same feeling is being captured by Ghalib in this sher. The other thing that comes to mind is this teardrop is almost like the eye of the storm, right? The teardrop is almost the eye of the storm, the calmest part of the storm, around which the entire havoc is going to happen, right? So the teardrop is just it is heralding, it is what is the word I'm looking for? It is an indicator. Though in its own self it is a very small thing and it is very calm, it sure is an indicator of the hurricane that is going to happen around it. So do not get fooled by the teardrop that never rolled down the cheek, right? Because it is at the center of a huge storm that is coming. That is coming. This self-control will give away, and there will come a time when Ghalib will have to let all this pain out for everybody to see. So that brings us to the end of the ghazal. Hope you enjoyed the impressions. Like I said, just so much thought and amazing visualization brought together by Ghalib to help one understand the anxiety, the pain, the different ways it manifests, the different ways it is hidden, is just amazing. Okay, now in the next episode, we will get into the 7th ghazal from Diwan-e-Ghalib. उसका मतला है, धमकी में मर गया जो ना बाबे नामर्द था न बर्द था, इश्क नबर्द पेशा तलबगारे मर्द था. So yeah, look forward to getting into this one in the next episode. Till then, everybody, love and light. Thanks for watching.